Here's the picture I recently drew of old Ace here, brothers and sisters. So if you enjoy drawings like this, feel free to come over and follow me on the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+, all the social networks. One Piece, Chapter 161, The Green City, Erumalu. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the tantalizing tale of One Piece. Our last chapter left us, of course, with finally being able to meet some of these Baroque Works officer agents, namely Mr. 1, Miss Doublefinger. We had already, of course, met Mr. 2, but then Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas. And things ended off with them, of course, you know, they're going to be gathering to go to the Rain Town, or the whatever, the Village of Rain, whatever the hell that was called. I can't remember for the life of me now. So, but that's how things ended, and that's where things pick up. We wind up seeing is they're being transported across the desert on this giant turtle, this giant desert turtle that's kind of pulling a wagon called a bunchy or a bunchi. And we wind up seeing too, and Miss Doublefinger was kind of acting as the proprietor of the Spider's Cafe, Miss Pola, and we find out that the secret nature of the Baroque Works as it is, winds up keeping them from really knowing a lot about each other. I mean, they've never even met Sir Crocodile, don't even know that he's Mr. Zero. I personally would not buy into something like that where you didn't know who the hell you were working with or for or against, but that's the nature of their business, because we see as they're having a little conversation, Bon Clay goes and looks over her and he's like, "I had no idea that you were Miss Doublefinger," And, and she's like, so obviously, he's met her before, but did not know that she was that she was who she was. And she says, "Why? I never said I wasn't." So, but anyway, they're going to be, they're going towards, towards their destination, obviously, and that's kind of how we're left with them. We then get another quick page where it's Sir Crocodile and Miss All Sunday. Crocodile is asking, if everybody is ready to go, and if everybody has, if everything has been handled as it needs to be, have the billions been informed, of the plan, blah blah blah. And she says, well, the unluckies, that's who normally gets sent to deliver messages, they never returned from their last mission, so they still haven't figured out what happened on Little Garden to Mr. 3. I also forgot to mention that we wind up seeing Mr. 3 hanging out outside the Spider's Cafe. There was a quick shot of him, and you can tell, obviously, because of that hair thing that he's got with the 3, and he was kind of like, dressed in, he's got like his little robes and rags over him, so to speak, to blend in with people, and he was kind of peeking in to see what was going on there. So so we definitely are going to wind up seeing him in the near future. And then a few chapters before that, and again, something I just forgot to mention that was fairly minor at the time, but sometimes you do glance over these things, was that they in fact had seen Vivi and company, and the Straw Hats had seen his boat docked there, when they were in Nanohana. So we know that something's going to come to fruition with that fairly soon, we assume anyway. But then we go and we wind up finding out that they have these lizard-like things that are their backups for dispatching things, and they look kind of like little velociraptors. And that's the backup for Baroque Works, for their messenger delivery service. But the next part of, and really the rest of the chapter, takes place with of course the Straw Hats, and they're not at Yuba yet. That's where they're on their way to, but they wind up having to land southeast of there, because they have to go northwest and travel through the desert to get to Yuba, and they are in Erumalu, I think it's called. But this was called the Green City. And as they show up, it's like a ghost town, and Luffy goes and makes mention of it, and so do some of the other Straw Hats. What's going on? Why is it like this? And Vivi starts explaining some of the background and the history of things. The river, the Sandora River, that delivers fresh water, of course, to keep crops and things like that healthy and green. It didn't dry up, but the force of the sea has been pushing it further and further back, upriver. So there's no fresh water source that's close by. We also wind up getting, and it's kind of funny because we wind up running into these Kung-Fu Dugongs, I think they were called. I'm going to have to take a quick look over here, so forgive me, but they were kind of funny, and it was just, it was a real funny exchange between Luffy as usual, the type of stuff that he comes up with, the goofball that he is. And here, let me see here. Of course, I'm not going to find them. And they look like these little seals. They're kind of funny. Oh, yeah, Kung-Fu Dugongs. I was right. So Usopp goes and sees one of these things and like, what is that, you know? I think it's Nami that tells him, stay away from that, you know? And next thing you know, he's lying on the ground like bloody, like he got his ass kicked. So these Kung-Fu Dugongs are like these seals that can fight, you know. They look like little seals. So next day, so Luffy goes and kicks one of their asses. And they're like, no, Luffy, don't do that. You know, they're like, once you go and you beat one of them, then they're like, it's like part of their code. They're forever in your service as like your apprentice, right? So Luffy's standing around, then you see in the next panel, the ding-dong that Luffy is, he's a simple-minded fool, I guess I should say. He's sitting around and he's got like 100 of them. And he's all teaching them different stuff, you know. And then we go and we see a couple panels later. They're like, yeah, great, we had to part with half of our food now, half of our rations because of you. And he's like, hey, it's not my fault. Those would have been cool to have. And they're like, you know, you idiot, no town is going to let you bring those in. You know, they're like these wild animals or what have you. So apparently the Kung-Fu Dugongs, we find out also that Chopper had to actually talk with them. Chopper can speak with animals. And that's a really, really good asset, as you can see already, because he wound up talking with these things and basically bribing them with food to get them to not follow Luffy and company around everywhere. So that's kind of good. Definitely very good. But we wind up finding out that these are, you know, they're sea animals, and that's pretty much why they have come up and they've washed up out of the sea. And that's when we find out about the river, because the river is kind of gotten pushed back, and the sea has pushed more up and past this town. So now these things are coming up out of the sea. It's really cool, though, because we wind up getting this really nice, really neat backstory. And I'm sure there's more to it, but Vivi explains what thrust this country into what it is. First of all, there was never problems with, she said, you know, traditionally there was never problems with rain and this and that. When the rain came, it came. But now there hasn't been any for, you know, 3 years and this and that, or whatever time period it is, but it's been a while. And what happens is, and we get this flashback of the incident that she says 2 years ago, and this is what apparently triggered the rebellion. And we find out that, of course, it was all planned by Crocodile. There's this stuff called dance powder. It's this green powder. And I guess this stuff creates artificial rain. Or not so much artificial rain, but what it does is it turns into like this mist and goes up into the clouds, and it basically like sucks all the water out of the clouds, forcing them to rain, right? So it's almost like a magic, like instant rain type deal. People are using it all over the place. Well, they wound up finding out it was banned eventually by the world government. So it's one of those things that like it helps the immediate cause, but I guess all the surrounding areas, since it kind of like sucks all the water out of the air, it keeps that, they kind of show this picture like a happy cloud, and then after the green part, like this angry cloud. But what it does, in essence, is it takes all the moisture out of the air, and then permanently, or at least for the foreseeable future, damages the surrounding areas from getting rain as well, so that this stuff was banned. What wound up happening is 2 years ago, there was these 2 huge sacks of this green powder. We didn't know it was at first, being delivered on a delivery on its way, and one of them, and it falls, and during shipping, you know, and it falls, and one of them breaks open, and people are like, what the hell? And they're like, hey, we're just delivering this to the king. We have no idea what's going on. We're supposed to go to Alubarna, you know, and the capital. And what wound up happening is it was all set up by Crocodile to where, you know, because then people are like, oh my, because it was banned by the world government. So what everybody got the impression of was that the king wound up getting a bunch of this stuff for himself, for the capital. And then when it was, and there was a bunch of it that was placed inside the castle and everything else that was planted in there, as well as, of course, this failed delivery, this shipment attempt. It wound up getting a bunch of people to turn on the king and the monarchy, saying, you know, thinking, and what else would you think, you know? Okay, there's a drought going on, and here this guy's using this banned, you know, substance that's been banned by the world government to create artificial rain just in the capital, which happened, but then it goes and it dries out and sucks up everything around in the surrounding areas, being the country of Alabasta. So it's kind of funny, too, because when, you know, Luffy winds up going, and then he's like, geez, I can't believe he did that. And Sanji kicks him in the face, and he's like, he was framed, you idiot.
And then that's when Vivi goes into it, and that's why she hates Crocodile so bad. That's why she went on this journey and was undercover for God knows how long with Baroque Works, and had to do probably unthinkable things to uncover his identity, to find out, because, I mean, she truly hates him. And you truly find out that this guy is just a piece of garbage. Because what he did, like I was predicting in the last chapter, was, you know, used some bullshit to turn the country against itself. And because ultimately I know that I would feel the same way if, you know, we found out that there was a shortage on this or that, and then all of a sudden you found out here in the States that, you know, but like Washington was cool and the White House was fine and had plenty of whatever that, you know, whatever it was, whether it be rain or food or whatever that there was a shortage of. So it's definitely kind of neat to see that backstory and to see what the motivations are and why these rebels, even though they're still fighting for what they think is their, you know, is their country, and upholding the country because they think that their king has wronged them, and in reality he hasn't. So all in all, definitely I think it was very good. We wind up getting over there. You know, them trekking off into the desert, and that's how the chapter ends, you know, and Luffy's kind of like, hey, let's go, I'm ready for some action, you know. So all in all, it was a very good chapter in the sense of finding out some background and why, because, you know, we've been introduced to Vivi now, I don't know, what, 50 chapters ago, and really we know that their country was in turmoil and that there was this rebellion, but we had no idea why. So for me personally, this was a very nice thing to actually find out what's going on, and to some extent why there's these, you know, this rebellion and everything else. So my chapter question, though, and I actually meant to ask this in the last chapter when we were introduced to all these new agents, is would you ever work for someone or something where you did not know who the boss was or the entity? And I'm not talking about, you know, I mean, you work for some, you know, corporation, a McDonald's, a Walmart, whatever. You're not going to meet the president or the CEO of the company, but you know who your immediate boss is, who your manager is, who your whatever, your division, you know, partner, whatever the case may be. Would you ever go and blindly work? I mean, because even if somebody went and offered me like shit tons of money, right, but was like, listen, you got to do some things, and it's kind of like one of those James Bond type things. Like, if you get captured, we are not going to ever admit your existence or that we know you, you know? So that's kind of how I feel with that. And I feel like it's a risk versus reward thing. But ultimately, I feel like the risk is too great for the reward, because no matter what type of money you gave me to perform a certain job and or task, not ever having anyone to rely on, and then knowing that, you know, if you screw up, you're dead. I don't know. So my chapter question is, would you ever work for an organization like that when you didn't even know, you know, who some of your colleagues were, who your boss was, you know, and you really didn't know a whole lot. You just received orders through, you know, through messages, I guess, you know. So that's the chapter question. Remember to leave your comments and your answers to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching you in the next one, nation.
As always, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for watching the video, liking, sharing, subscribing, rating, and just spreading the word of the nation. Here's a little picture I did quite some time ago of old Dracul Mihawk.